Fun little WrestleTalk fact, a while back, to take a little weight off his ever-expanding shoulders, Mr. Davis put me in complete control of the list. Do whatever you want, he said, and that will come to haunt him. The internet's full of lists all about stuff you didn't know about whatever, and the worst yellow circles with arrows pointing to them in WWE history, and sure, I'll do those lists too. Got to get that paper. But I woke up this morning with a mission, and that mission is to talk about all the times that a WWE wrestler has fucked your dad. Your dad, in particular, your dad. See, it's been a rough decade for your dad. The plant closed down, they stopped making that pie he likes. As he's gotten up in the years, his increased awareness of his own mortality is coupled with a vague nagging disappointment in himself fueled by aspirational social media to form a presence of anxiety that's much a part of him as his own shadow. But thankfully, over the years, your dad has been able to find pockets of solace in his cruel world, and often it came in the form of famous WWE wrestlers railing him silly. Here are 10 wrestlers who seduced your dad and how they did it. And hey, if this stupid video makes you smile, please consider subscribing to WrestleTalk, because life is tiring. We're going to try and make some stuff that'll make you smile, and we'd like you to see it. Number 10, The Rock held your dad in his big arms. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has arms the size of French oak barrels, which are perfect for aging Terramana Tequila Blanco, as the Brahma Bull will tell you on his Instagram account, which is just past 200 million followers, the most in history. Your dad, on the other hand, only has about 86 followers, and half of those seem to be bots with troubling opinions. This used to make your dad feel sad a lot, but then one day, The Rock sat him down, one strong yet tender hand encompassing your dad's knee like a bear's paw cradling a pine cone, and he explained that social media isn't real, that they're all just curated best-of show reels of people presenting how they'd like to be defined, and they represent very little of the inner life. No one is fully at peace, no one is constantly happy, not even The Rock, and sometimes that's okay. And he took your dad in his arms, and for that moment of bodily contact, everything else melted away, and as The Rock leant in to kiss your dad, there was a faint yet powerful perfume of Terramana Tequila Blanco. Number 9, Daniel Bryan seduced your dad on a pile of freshly harvested crops. Your dad likes wearing flannel shirts, and that's how he met Daniel Bryan in the aisle of that thrift shop on Main Street. They were both going for that last red and blue plaid made of sustainable materials when their hands touched. Daniel Bryan's eyes met your dad's, and they both giggled a little and turned beetroot, which coincidentally is the vegetable pile of which Daniel Bryan had sex with your dad on. Why don't we see who the shirt fits better? Bryan had asked your dad before taking him back to his farm, and it was there that your dad smelt fresh air for the first time, what felt like forever. For so long, Bryan had explained to him, people, especially men, associated success with accumulation, and that is a snake that eats its own tail. Production from the land, understanding man's collaborative, not possessive relationship with the planet, brought Daniel much more happiness than owning a big watch. Then he took your dad by the hand and took him to the beetroot shed to plant his own seeds. Afterwards, even though the shirt definitely looked better on Daniel, he gave it to your dad. On second thought, Bryan said, I have all the shirts I need. Number 8, John Moxley had sex with your dad in a Volkswagen Transporter, and to be honest, your dad regrets it. There was just something about John Moxley. Maybe it was how he swaggered, not giving a damn what anyone thought about him or his collection of terrible jackets. Maybe it was the fact that John smelled of Marlboro Reds and the kind of cider you buy in plastic 2-litre bottles, or maybe it was the eye patch. Your dad isn't sure. And he was in a vulnerable place that night when he slept with the Mox. He'd just turned 40, his lower back was playing him up, he was feeling old, and when he looks back, that's what did it. John Moxley reminded him of how he used to be as a teenager, defiant, invincible, subjecting his body to all manner of torment without lasting consequence. And fair play to John, after it was over and they were lying on that mattress in the back of the van surrounded by plastic takeaway boxes and watching Vine compilations on John's phone, Mox gave your dad all the aftercare he needed. It's just that your dad realized that the sex was his attempt to move backwards in his life, not forward. It was a fun night though, and sometimes that's enough. Number 7, Cody Rhodes seduced your dad in a tattoo parlor. Your dad had just lost his job when the plant closed down and felt like he needed something to represent turning a corner in his life. However, once he got into the tattoo parlor, he began to get cold feet. After all, his whole world had just been turned upside down. Stability was a lie. What if he hated the tattoo in 5 years? Hey, said a charismatic chestnut voice over his shoulder, nothing in life is permanent. That's not the point of a tattoo. It's not supposed to lock you into being a certain person for the rest of your life. It's supposed to be an expression of who you are now. If life's not working out for you, it's never too late to try something new, to learn a new skill, to find a new passion. Vera Wang wanted to be an Olympic figure skater and didn't start working in fashion until she was 40. Tattoos can always be removed, my dude. Do something that excites you today. The only thing that your dad regrets now is the fact that he and Cody made energetic love while Cody was getting his neck tattoo done. The tattoo artist says, Mr. Rhodes, you shouldn't do that or it'll make your neck tattoo look terrible. Ah, hell, said Cody, flashing your dad that comforting smile. How bad could it end up looking? Number 6, of course Ric Flair has seduced your dad, because he's the physical embodiment of a dangerous good time. Roller coasters are compelling because they're highs and they're lows. You can't stay on a roller coaster forever because it'll mess your body up, but every so often they remind you of what it is to be alive, and none more so than Space Mountain. Your dad was tall enough to ride. Everyone's dad is tall enough to ride. Number 5, Shawn Michaels had sex with your dad and they both cried afterwards. Your dad's done some things in his life that he's not proud of, and that's why he felt so close with the Heartbreak Kid. Of all the WWE wrestlers who have taken your dad to downtown Bonetown big style, surprisingly Shawn was the most tender, the most soulful. He and your dad shared a bottle of wine and opened up about the person your dad used to be. Michaels told your dad some of the things that he had done and how you can never take those things back. You can only use them to make sure each individual footprint is in the right direction. Some people may only ever know you for the person you were, and unless you can let that go, you'll be sad forever. All you can do is make the best times with the people who see you for who you're trying to become. He cried, your dad cried, and when the last drop of wine was drunk, Shawn Michaels looked your dad in the eye, or at least your dad thought Shawn was looking him in the eye, and they made sweet music together. Number 4, Finn Balor showed your dad what being a man was all about. Your dad wasn't sure about Finn Balor when they first met. He didn't seem to care about which movie they ended up seeing or where they went for dinner afterwards. As the trailers before Smurfs 2 rolled, your dad was worried that Finn was maybe too laid back, that he wasn't proactive enough. But then your dad started to notice how Finn treated everybody on their night out. He was polite and courteous to the kiosk worker. He showed patience when a mother's child started crying in the cinema and instead tried to help her comfort the little tot. He was warm and friendly when the waiter got his order wrong at dinner, and he was kind to the valet who wanted to talk about wrestling for 10 minutes after bringing his car around. Your dad realized that he'd bought into the trap of feeling that strength comes from making firm decisions, not backing down from them, treating your own will as absolute. But as he saw Finn be flexible with his time and spirit, regarding the world with low stakes and a default of kind indulgence, your dad understood that pure strength and felt more turned on than he'd ever felt in his life. And of course, Balor made sure your dad finished. He's just that kind of guy. Number 3, The Undertaker taught your dad not to fear the Reaper. Everything dies, The Undertaker said, and your dad was a little concerned because they were mid-coitus at the time. But without death, life has no definition, no purpose. Your dad didn't respond because he didn't really know how to, and also his mouth was full at the time, so he let The Undertaker continue. I've thought a lot about death recently. When you enter retirement, you start to lose more friends than you make, and it can make you obsessive about what comes next, that undiscovered country from whose shores no traveler returns. It's worth pointing out that Undertaker was still having sex with your dad while he was speaking, don't forget that. But ultimately, none of us can know what comes next. There's only so much we can worry about an unknown. Ultimately, all we can do is try to take care of ourselves to last until an age where we can accept our passing, or maybe even see it as a relief, a well-earned rest after a hard life's work. Good point, thought your dad as he had sex with the Undertaker in the bathroom of a Wendy's. Number 2, Drew McIntyre played the bagpipes for your dad, but your dad had sex with him anyway. Well, that wasn't very good, said Drew, putting the bagpipes down, a little sheepish, but ultimately it was Drew's sense of humor and willingness to try and fail that endeared him to your dad. As the two of them tucked into a plate of tatties, it was Drew's endurance that really got your dad's engine revving. The Big D with the Big D had lost his dream job, but hadn't let it slow him down. Drew had felt great sadness at that, and he'd allowed himself to feel that sadness. True strength wasn't rejecting those feelings, it was giving yourself time to process them so you could move on, and Drew had done just that, treating every single indie show as important, saw every gig as an opportunity to try something new and build his skill set. The journey was too big to see all in one go, but each day Drew had asked himself, how can I best use this day? And eventually he made it out on the other side. Much like the lovemaking session that Drew and your dad would eventually have atop Brown Carrick Hill, it hadn't been quick and it hadn't been smooth, but it had been an opportunity that had been seized upon. And number 1, John Cena f***ed your dad after a full and frank discussion of various beliefs and ideas. Here is the bed we'll be having sex on later, if you're still keen, said John Cena to your dad. But first, he said, leading your dad over to a pair of armchairs in front of a roaring fire, is where I'd like to have a talk. For the next 4 hours, your dad and John Cena talked about politics, how the world was changing around them, the discord and upset in the world. Your dad and John Cena agreed on some things, like that Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood was vastly superior to the original series, but disagreed on many others. Nevertheless, John Cena, despite having some views that your dad saw as being a little conservative for his liking, impressed your dad by maintaining a respectful civility and genuinely being interested in the nuances of your dad's opinions. Likewise, your dad returned that respect by understanding that where John Cena was coming from was as a result of his upbringing and environment, and that everyone is just trying to make sense of the world around them, and sometimes that's scary, and it's easier sometimes to boil things down to black and white, and simplistic absolutist thinking is never the answer. Your dad and John Cena came to the conclusion that it's impossible to see the world from enough people's different perspectives in order to have enough authority to dictate to someone else how how they live their lives. If you disagree with someone, you can try to understand what motivates that discord, but only if there's mutual respect. Without respect, such conversation is pointless, so remove disrespectful conversation from your life and try and approach all others with as much compassion as you're able. And when someone speaks to you, listen. Afterwards, John Cena asked your dad if he would still like to have sex. Your dad said that he would, and so they f***ed on a very big bed with lovely soft Egyptian cotton sateen sheets. Waboo do. And that's our list. Which WWE wrestlers have seduced your dad? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and share this video around, and make sure you subscribe to WrestleTalk for more news and lists, and never forget to jam that jam.